All right. What we're going to do is we're going to write these linear equations. Okay. So let's start off with step one. Step one, we're going to identify the slope. So that should say slope and the y-intercept. I may spell intercept wrong. INTERCEPT. Yeah, so in this case, we're going to identify the slope and the y-intercept, okay? And things we have to take into consideration. Writing the equation in slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form is this. Y equals mx plus b, where y is the y value, m is the slope, x is the x value, and b is the y-intercept. So when we talk about the term y-intercept, what are we talking about? This is the y-axis. Right? See that? We move to this side. This is the y-axis. So when we talk about the y-intercept, we're looking for a point where the line here with the arrows crosses the y-axis. I'm sorry, I called it intercept, but I meant axis. This is the y-axis. This is the y-axis, all right? So we're looking for the point where it crosses the y-axis, all right? And the point here is called the y-intercept. This point here is called the y-intercept. So let's look here. Y-intercept is B. B is going to be the y-intercept. So in this case, with number one, the y-intercept, let's see, go down. Here's 0, here's -1, here's -2, here's -3. So our B is going to be -3. You see how we did that? Do you see how we did that? Yeah. And the same way here, we're going to look here and say this is 0. You know, this is 0 right here, right here. So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2. So our y-intercept, our B, is going to be 2. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Number 2, right? Problem number 2. So again, this is our y-axis right here, the straight up and down, and our x-axis is over here. So what's our B, our y-intercept? Where does this arrowed line cross the y-axis? Crosses right here, right? So we already identified that that was 2, right? So now we need to find out what the slope is. So what type of slope is this? This is a negative slope, all right? So since it's a negative slope, what we need to do is begin by counting down. So we go from this point right here to this point right here, right? And what do? We went down 1, 2, 3. So we went down 3 and we went over 1, 2. So we went over 2. All right. So we went down 3 and we went over 2. So now we can write our equation of the line, which is going to be y equals -3 over 2 x plus, now what's our y-intercept, our b? What's our y-intercept? 2. So that would be the correct answer. Y equals -3 over 2 x plus 2. It's a positive 2, so that's why we went with the plus 2. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. Let's do our so equation, the equation of the line. The equation of the line is always going to be y equals mx plus b. All right. So first, why don't we find out what our slope is? And so here's one point, and this is a point where it perfectly crosses horizontal and vertical lines. And if I go up a little further, here's another point where it perfectly crosses the horizontal and vertical lines. So now I want to find out what the slope is. All right, so let's do it this way. Since we know that it's a positive slope, I'm going to count up first. 1. And see how I stayed on the straight line? 2, 3. I stayed on this line. So the top part is going to be 3. And then I move over. 1, 2. So the bottom is 2. So our equation of the line, the slope part is going to be 3 over 2. That's going to be slope. 3 over 2. We went up 3. 1, 2, 3. And remember, we stayed on this line. They moved over 2. 1, 2. So that's why we have 3 over 2. So now we need to find out what the B is. What the B is, the y-intercept. Let's find out what the B is. Well, I'm looking here, and this is where the y-intercept is, right here, right? So if I were looking at numbers, then I would say this is 0, right? This would be 1, this would be 2, this would be 3. So this point here is actually 0, 3, right? So for our purposes, we're going to say the B is 3. The B is 3. So now when I write out the equation of the line for this one, it'll be y equals Rm 3 over 2 x plus, and what's our B? Positive 3. Positive 3. So that's how we solve number 5. Okay. Now with that, you should be able to do any of the other ones on the sheet. Let's see. Do your best.